Reggiano. Italy is a country comprised of 20 regions. Each region of Italy has its own unique pride in the cheeses that they produce. Today we're going to talk a little bit about one of the most special cheeses that Italy has to offer. It's called Parmigiano Reggiano, a history of over 800 years of production. It gets its name from two areas of Emilia-Romagna, the major city of Parma and the major city of Reggio Emilia. Within this particular area, the cows that graze in these very rich, fertile grasslands below the Po River, the milk is unique to that particular area. Parmigiano Reggiano is the cheese we call in the family of Grana. What does that mean, Grana? Why is it called a Grana type cheese? Well, for one, you could see, properly aged, it's going to have a grainy look. But that's not really the reason why we call it Grana. We call it Grana is because in making cheese, we have to separate the milk, fat, protein, and separate it from the water. When we do that, the water we call whey, the fat and protein we call curd. And we take the curd and we break them down into very, very small pieces. Very small, the size of a rice grain. Why is that? Because we want the cheese to be a dense cheese. We want this cheese to be able to stand the test of time. And by eliminating much of the watery part of milk, this will give an opportunity for this cheese to age and last for a very long time. Twice a day we get the milk, and what's special is that they take the milk from the evening, they let it stand, and they let the fat rise. They skim that fat off, and now they have a skimmed milk. And what they do is they add the morning milk that they receive from the cow, and they use that, blend it with the skimmed milk, whole milk from the morning, skimmed milk from the evening. So this is what we call a partially skimmed milk cheese. That also adds to the texture and density of the cheese. The seasonal differences are more evident in a cheese such as Parmigiano because of the fact that it's aged for such a long period of time. I have often talked about the seasons of Parmigiano Reggiano. Every cheese made is going to have a seasonal diversity. In the case of Parmigiano, since it's cow's milk, cows produce milk every day, 365 days a year. We make Parmigiano Reggiano 365 days a year. What do I mean by seasonal differences? In essence, we are what we eat. And during the course of the year, we have different grazing pasture lands for the cows. During the springtime, that is the period of time when, after the dead of winter, what comes up? Young, tender grass, emerald in color. And in many cases, more often than none, there's wild flowers that grow, spring flowers. That is a combination of feed that the cows are eating on, which makes a difference in the taste and character of the cheese. Spring season, which we have here, has almost a pinkish hue to it. Remember, flowers. In the summer, that intense grass, that second growth of grass is very, very intense, and in many cases, sometimes even parched from the extreme heat, because this area of Emilia-Romagna has a lot of heat in the area, unless you're up in the hills. During the summertime, it's very hot. Cows don't like a lot of heat, so their milk is going to be a little bit more intense in flavor. Some would say a little bit more pungent from the strong grass and from the heat that the cows are stressed with. You're going to get a much more yellow, dark yellow color. In the fall, we have the third and fourth growth of grass. The time of year when the cows are now still eating grass, but it's a different character to the grass, and it has different properties that give higher caseins in the milk to make the cheese a little bit richer in taste. In the fall, it's golden. And finally, winter season. You know that Parmigiano Reggiano traditionally was never made in the winter, because the original laws for making this particular cheese, you had to give the cows fresh cut grass to make the cheese. But because of the world demand being so great, they started producing it in the winter. A cheese we like to refer to as invernengo. Inverno meaning winter, and invernengo, the cheese that's made in the winter. And what's different about that? Well, they're not feeding on fresh grass. They're feeding on usually dry hay and sometimes some alfalfa blended in with that. All natural forage from the specific area of where this cheese is made. Feeding on hay and alfalfa, it tends to be very white. So I liken it to the fact that in the winter we have snow, white. So it seems like nature plays a role in its characteristics of the cheese, the Parmigiano. In the spring we have flowers, more pinkish. In the summer, dark yellow. And in the fall, when the leaves are coming off the trees, very golden. Spring being very complex in flavor. Summer being much stronger, more intense in flavor. Fall having a combination of the intensity that you find in the summer, but also sweetness that you find in the winter. A very sweet winter Parmigiano, almost pineapple-y. So to understand Parmigiano Reggiano is to experience all four seasons. And when you go into your neighborhood shop, ask, when is it produced? He'll know, because each form of Parmigiano Reggiano is marked with not only the year of production, but the month. You can see that this was made in March of 2015, giving us a spring Parmigiano. March, April, May would be the spring. June goes on the cusp, as you might say, to the summer, through September into the cusp, fall up until December, January, February, we say winter. Now in cutting Parmigiano, it should be respected. What do I mean by respecting the cheese? Well, the fact that you can see it's very grainy, we don't want to just cut this cheese. We want to crack it. We want to keep that wonderful characteristic that Parmigiano is supposed to have, this grainy texture. So we'll use a knife like this, or a knife that could resemble a spade, and we sort of just score it and just go through about 1/4 of an inch in the center of the cheese. And just let it split itself like this here. This way we can have a beautiful split piece of Parmigiano. And when you're serving it, unless you're going to shave it over a salad or cured meat like bresaola, you would want to pick the cheese out so everybody gets a taste of that wonderful grainy texture, because texture is as important as flavor. Aroma is as important as flavor. The senses, all the senses, our eyes, in seeing the color of the cheese and understanding the season that it's from is important. So you have to use all your senses, the aroma, the taste, the texture, and the sight of it. And that will give you the perfect balance of Parmigiano and perfect appreciation of how this cheese should be.